Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I'm really happy that you are here. If you're new to our show, welcome. Please make sure you click the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening or watching. We're on YouTube. Our YouTube audience and community is growing. So if you prefer to watch our show, make sure that you go click and subscribe to us over there. And we love when you share this episode or episodes with friends. So if you know somebody that could get value out of this episode or any of our shows, please share it on social media. Just tell a friend, whatever, because the more people that listen to us, the better it is for everybody. And we're able to continue to deliver amazing guests like the one that I'm about to bring out to you today. So joining me today is Amber Romaniuk. And I think I may have misspelled her or mispronounced her name, but she'll correct me when she comes out. And Amber and I were introduced not that long ago. And what I love about Amber's story is she's a podcast host and she hosts the No Sugarcoating Podcast. And so she helps people with emotional eating. And she has a whole business practice, coaching, all the things about helping people navigate emotional eating. And if you've been around our show for a hot minute, you know that there are so many parallels between how we navigate our health, our wellness, clutter, organization, all the things. So I had the great pleasure of being a guest on her show about a week or so ago. We recorded, I'm not sure at the time if this goes live, if it'll be out, but we'll make sure that we cross promote that. But there's so many similarities about the looping self-negative talk that we tell ourselves, whether it comes to the way that we look or the way our houses look or what we should be doing. You know, I'm saying that with air quotes. And so I wanted to invite her on the show to talk a little bit about the work that she's doing and just, again, connect the dots between where we're kind of tight gripping things in our lives when it may come to the way that we eat, the way that we exercise, and the way that we, nurture our homes. So without further ado, let me welcome Amber to the show. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. So happy to be with you today.
I am really excited. You're such a doll and you are such a gracious host. I said, we have to get you on our show because, again, I know we were talking about the uncanny parallels between, where people struggle and in their lives. So before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of everything, I'd love for you to just tell our listeners a little bit about you and who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so you were so close on the name, I'm Amber Romaniuk, and I'm an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. And I help women all over the world who are struggling with emotional eating, binge eating, any form of really emotional relationship with food. And then, of course, tied into that are the body image and weight battle struggles, the mindset insecurities, the unworthiness, the people pleasing. And then, of course, as we go into those thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors, the hormone imbalances, the gut imbalances, the cravings, all that kind of stuff that comes along with all of that. So I've had my business for 10 years and it's just such a blessing and an honor to help women heal this because it's definitely has a significant impact on our lives when we're exhausted and bloated and brain fogged and fighting with our bodies and using food to soothe. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious if you could just tell our listeners, if you don't mind, how'd you get into this? Because it is really a very niched area specifically. And I think it's so fascinating, but it is really like dialed in. And as an entrepreneur, and we also have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to our show. So it's always fascinating to just learn about from that perspective, like how this even came about, how your practice came about.
I will tell you, it wasn't in my life plans. When I had first, turned 18, 19, went to college to go to broadcast news to be a TV host. but then the universe had way different plans for me. And so it's actually through my own personal struggles and healing, my own food addiction, binge eating, emotional eating, body image struggles, hormone and gut imbalances that birthed my business. I went through quite a struggle, like growing up, feeling unworthy, not liking my body. I had a couple of really key experiences that really, I think, shaped my perception of myself. And I think we all go through these, but what we don't give a lot of attention to is how significant these experiences can impact the way we're thinking and behaving with ourselves, our bodies, and food. So when I was 5, my first day on the bus, I get on the bus and the older boys call me fat and ugly. And then the whole bus is making fun of me. And think of like the 5-year-old, she's got her little mushroom cut in her big brown eyes and she's just so hurt inside and going, oh my gosh, if strangers are saying this, it must be true. And I don't think a lot of 5-year-olds are equipped with how to brush comments like that off our experiences. So you take it in, and that became my identity for the next 20 years of my life. And then with food, I grew up in a household, and there's no blame here. Like, your parents do the best that they can. But food was always available. Baked goods, junk food, fast food, like whatever I wanted was always available. And part of that was because my mom, who was incredible, but she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born. And so I think one of the ways she compensated for some of the things we couldn't do together because of her symptoms was with food. So everything we did was associated with food. And after I healed, I discovered she actually had a food addiction that she never really addressed. And I could see the behaviors and the hidden wrappers in the drawers and just those kinds of things. After I'm like, oh, I think, part of this was an innocent, unconscious inheritance. And same with the body image insecurities, because she was always talking about how she hated her body and always struggled with her weight. And I can't imagine getting that diagnosis in your late 20s and just going through the experience of you literally just slowly losing control of your body, because that's a big part of what that disease is. And so I think that those two things really shaped my relationship with food. If food is a friend, it tastes good, it makes me feel good, it doesn't call me names, right? But then there was that double-edged sword and disconnect, because as you become a preteen and a teenager and you get exposed to Hollywood, the media, magazines, music videos, celebrities, and you're like, whoa, their bodies all look so perfect and they have flat stomachs and they look like this and I don't. And you start comparing. And then you assume there must be something wrong with me because I don't look like that, when there's something wrong with photoshopping and editing and deceiving the public, right, to sell products. But again, we're not equipped with that knowledge. And so you start the comparison, you start the celebrity diets. I'm buying all these diet books, and I'm getting into dieting when I'm like 12, 13, 14, because I'm essentially assuming if I lose weight and have the perfect body, that's how I'm going to have love, success, money, attention from men, etc. Right? Like, that was the ideology that I took on. And so I think we really get a very skewed body image, a lot of us. And I can't imagine growing up now in the age of social media and filters and all of that put on top of everything else. Because I think it's really easy to create body dysmorphia and to just be so hard on our bodies emotionally and physically. So that was really like the first 21 years of my life. And then I fell deep into like binge eating, where I was actively aware that that's what I was starting to do in my early 20s. Went through a breakup, was really hurt. It was hard to eat for a while.
Then food was your friend or food was your enemy,
yeah,
and food becomes that.
Yeah. Right. And then you're like, well, I'm going to lose the weight and get the revenge body, and then that will fix everything. But it didn't fix anything. And I was now restricting and over exercising, and I couldn't attain it. And then I fell into the binge eating. And to me, binge eating wasn't just having some chocolate. It was having a whole bar of chocolate, a whole pint of ice cream, a whole bag of, like, I was eating until I was so full I was sick. And what ends up happening when you go from, this place of, losing weight and then gaining 60 or 70 pounds in 4 months and now being the heaviest you've ever been, is you get catapulted in this all or nothing mentality, where you're convinced that, oh, if I could just be perfect on this diet and with my exercise routine, I can lose the weight and gain control with food and get back to where I was. But then it's not attainable when we're in this fear, worry, I need to lose weight to be happy. And then a bad day would happen, or stress would happen, or my favorite foods would be in the room, and I'm just so tempted, and now I'm binging and losing control until I'm so full I'm sick. And so that was just the back and forth, like, oh, I messed up, I binged, now I got to fix it by restricting, dieting, and over exercising. And that was really 3 or 4 years of very destructive behavior in that. Went through binging and purging and was able to stop that. But all of that really is what helped me go on the journey, because I think everyone has either a low point moment or a moment where they're like, I can't tolerate doing this anymore. Because so many of us have our habits and behaviors and we convince ourselves they're not a big deal. And so I was suffering immensely. Like, I was horribly bloated, even if I wasn't binge eating. Again, I was 70 pounds heavier than, I started out. And emotionally, mentally, it was exhausting and draining, and all the inflammation and health issues and symptoms that I was bringing upon myself. But this ego mind, this kind of voice in the mind that convinces you and justifies, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not that bad. Food's your friend though. Like, it's what helps you cope, right? So when we sit in this denial, we tolerate suffering and we downplay the significance of, whether it's binge eating, mindless shopping all the time, alcohol, whatever it is, we downplay the significance of how it's impacting us, our health, our well-being, our relationships, family, business, career, whatever it is. And I did that for a while, and the suffering just got worse, because what happens is people fear change. What if I try to deal with this and it doesn't work? What if I fail? Who am I going to be if food isn't my crutch and chasing the scale isn't what I immerse my whole focus in, right? What is life going to look like if I overcome this? Where do I start? So all of those, the doubt and the questioning and the fear kept me stuck. And instead I tolerated the suffering. And so I always like to share the low point moment, and I hope people don't have to get to the low point moment, but I finished a binge. I threw the food in the garbage, was laying on the couch in tears, worrying about, I don't think I'm going to make 30 if I keep doing this, because it was very hard on my body. And about an hour later, when the food had started to settle, I had gone into the kitchen, I dug out my blue garbage can, and I pulled out the cookies and I ate them. And that was just a completely embarrassing and shameful and just despairing moment. Like, I was just like, who am I? I just ate out of a garbage. I'm broke. I'm single. I'm unhappy. My bank account's always in the red. Like, I hate my crappy retail job. Like, how did this evolve into my life? I had a great upbringing and a great childhood. Like, what the heck? But in that moment, what happened is the fear of change, accepting, the suffering, being in denial that it's not a big deal, that all got crushed. And it's like, I cannot continue to tolerate this level of suffering. I'm not willing for this to be the end. I'm not willing to be in this anymore. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I got to get on the journey and I've got to figure this out. And that's really what then got me on the journey to starting to heal. And there's many layers of that, but that's really what, crushed the fear and stop the suffering.
I want to say I love it, but I mean, I love that you shared this story, because I think it's so relatable, and whether somebody can extract little nuggets here and there, or they have some sort of parallel story. There's so much there. And I was watching on YouTube, I was taking notes, because I think for so many people, and I don't talk super openly about it. I know I mentioned it to you, and it's not that it's a secret. It just doesn't come up often in conversation, but in my teens through my early 20s, I struggled with eating disorder. Or disordered eating, however they call it. And I definitely have body dysmorphia to this day. And I probably have scarred my children, because I'm always like, do I look like that? I look fat. Like everything you're not supposed to do, I have done. But for so many people, food is, or the way that they eat or they don't eat, is like their dirty little secret. And it's the same for clutter, right? And I talk about that all the time, is for so many people, clutter is this dirty little secret. And whether you're hiding in a closet eating, or you're, maybe you're not eating out of a garbage, but maybe you're close to it, or maybe you're moving your food around, or burying yourselves in clothes. It's just this unhealthy relationship that you have. And maybe you're upset, or when you have a bad day, you go shopping, and then you all of a sudden you're staring at a bunch of Amazon boxes of stuff that you don't even know what you bought. And so again, you can substitute it for other areas. But again, it's about getting to this point where the number on the scale isn't going to bring you happiness, just like the organized pantry isn't bringing you happiness. It's about the freedom that when you're in a healthy space and a healthy body, you can move more, you can do things, you don't have as much body aches and pains. But it's about understanding that the prize, air quote, isn't being a size 2 or, or, whatever it is, filling in the blank. It's about the freedom that comes from that.
Yeah. And I think the biggest problem is we've been so conditioned as a society to focus our worth and put it outside of us. So tie your worth to the number on the scale, tie your worth to how clean your house is, tie your worth to the size of clothing you wear, tie your worth to how much money you make and how many friends you have, or how much people pleasing you can do, or how overbooked your schedule is. And this is the problem, because nothing outside of us will ever make us feel worthy or fulfilled and fill that void. And so that's why you clean the pantry and it's still not good enough, and you reach the quote unquote goal weight and it's still not good enough, and then you're afraid of losing control because you haven't actually gone inward to do the inner healing. And I'm all for having the organized house and your body feeling healthy, and we can all reach our natural set point. But look at the magazine covers where it's like, lose weight, be happy. Like, there's millions of imagery and content that has been conditioned into our subconscious mind. And after a few hundred or thousand images, we start to believe that this is the key to happiness, even though it's not. And then it's like, we're just taken on this journey of distraction, of focusing on all these external things. And that's why so many women just stay stuck in these cycles and don't heal them, because the diet industry just wants you as a lifetime customer. Right.
Or that we're broken. I mean, I can't tell you on the flip side how many people's houses I've walked into and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so disorganized. And I'm looking around going, their house is fine. You know what I mean? And again, it's all relative, but I'm like, what kind of standard are you holding yourself to? Because I'm looking at your space and it's beautiful. And, again, none of us live in a Pinterest picture, an Instagram image, a magazine. Like I always said that, like, we don't live that, like, that's a staged photo, people. That is a snapshot in time. That is not real life, how we function and move. And the whole point in my life from an organizing space is so that you could breed hospitality. Like, what's the whole purpose of having a perfectly organized home if nobody's there to enjoy it? You want to be able to have that. And the same thing when it comes to having a healthy body. Like, okay, great, but you want to look good and feel good. And so that you could do these, it's not for the superficial, for the two-dimensional.
Yeah, 100%. I agree 100%.
I want to just take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to just kind of dive a little bit deeper into like how to break that cycle. So sit tight. So we talk a lot, obviously, about control, and so much about what we're doing, and both of the work that we're doing has to do with control of our space, or a loss of control. So it's kind of a two-part question. So first of all, how do you help people break that cycle? Because I know everybody's got their own story of how they kind of came out on the other side of their disordered eating struggles, right? Like what worked for you may be totally different than what worked for me. So just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. And then when that breakthrough occurs, I'm curious to see, like, do you see it have a ripple effect in other areas of their lives? And if so, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So 100%, the control piece is huge. And because what diets and restriction and focusing on calories and all these things teach us, and chasing a number on the scale, is to try and have control. If I can control the number of calories, if I can control the number on the scale, then I have control of my body. But that is actually false. And instead of control, what we actually want to we want to unlearn control. The only thing it's good to have control over is your thoughts and the steering wheel. Otherwise, we lack trust and faith. We lack belief in ourselves that, we can change or trust our bodies or learn how to listen. And so what we want to change that and shift that into is actually teaching you how to listen to your body, teaching you mindfulness, teaching you how to catch and shift negative self-talk, help you build awareness around why you're in the habits you are, what are your triggers. Because as you learn about your triggers, as you learn to understand your hormone imbalances and the different things that are making your body hang on to protection, I call weight a protective mechanism, because I believe we hang on when we don't feel safe. What are the roots of your digestive issues? What are the roots of your insecurities? When you learn those things and you start working on each one of them, you build awareness that helps you take your power back, that helps you learn how to listen to your body more and get to know her, your thoughts, beliefs as well, your vibration, your energy, all of it. And the more of that you gain, the more you trust yourself and your body. And therefore you rely on the inner the symptoms or your intuition and the way your body's talking to you, your thoughts. And then what seems like not appealing is using the calorie counting app, which is not helping me become in tune with my body. It's not helping me dig through my limiting beliefs and overcome people pleasing or any of those things. It's just telling me eat this much at these times, which keeps us so out of touch with going inside. So I really believe that there's like a multi-layer approach to this, and it looks a little different for every single person. And of course, every single client that I've had. But the keys are, number one, it's so important to start to become aware of the differences between physical and emotional hunger, because they're very different.
Love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell the difference, you're just going to eat regardless. Right. And keep going to food. So that was one of the first things I did on my journey. It's like, okay, Amber, before you just go eat again, can you try to pause? I know the urge is hard. I know the urge is big right now, but can you please go into a different room, close the door, lock it if you have to, grab a piece of paper and just write down, okay, is this physical hunger? Is my stomach growling? Has it been a few hours since I've eaten? Is my blood sugar dropping? Okay, no, I just eaten. Okay, so this is emotional. Okay, what's happened the last few days? Are you stressed? Did you not drink enough water? Are you tired? Like, I just started to ask questions and reflect. And as I reflected, I gained awareness and was able to start going, this is why I'm triggered. And I started making a list, right? So you're going to epically fail and get triggered, but that's okay, because after you get triggered, you can reflect on those triggers and write notes or journal, and then that's going to help you make your list. Okay. So I think that's really important. I think it's also important to just be lovingly honest with ourselves and go, am I afraid to feel my feelings? Do I not have healthy ways to cope with stress? Am I feeling critical of my body? What are my insecurities? Because honestly, it's okay. We all have them. And the more authentic you can be that I am a perfectionist, I have an all or nothing mentality, I'm a big people pleaser, I'm really critical of my body, whatever it is, it just helps you go, okay, wow, I can really see the areas that are fueling these behaviors, and it's okay. I'm human. We got to start somewhere. And then I think there is definitely a component of being willing to start dedicating some time to give to yourself in this journey. Because a huge reason why so many of my clients are in this behavior is because they're overbooked, they're overscheduled, they're overcommitted to everyone else but themselves, therefore putting themselves last or on the back burner. And I get it. You've got kids, you've got families, you've got businesses, you've got careers, you've got lives to live, 100%. However, you also deserve to prioritize your needs, and there's always a way. And we just start with you and your life and baby step, adding in even a few 5-minute little breaks, right? But you have to be willing to dedicate time, because what happens from a nervous system standpoint is if you're constantly overbooked and people pleasing and feeling this need, I have to be perfect and prove everything to everybody. And oh my God, I don't like my body, so I've got to get on the diet and get to the gym more. And we're going on vacation in a week and I need to fit in. Like, just even me talking like that, I can feel my cortisol rising, which is the stress hormone, right?
Yeah.
My nervous system is going into overdrive. And as soon as we go into that state, we want a reward. We want a quick break. I want my quick little pleasure. So what do? Overwhelm is one of the biggest emotional eating binge triggers. Oh my God, I just need a piece of chocolate. That muffin, that ice cream, that chip, that sandwich, whatever it is. And what happens is we associate reward with self-sabotage or the shopping or the alcohol or whatever. So we go, oh, well, I'm so overwhelmed. But then we start to think about, but I could eat that thing and that would just, I'd feel so good right now. And so the thought of eating the food starts to produce dopamine, and dopamine is one of our feel-good hormones in the brain that really gives us a big mood boost, only for a short period of time. But you chase that reward and you chase the association with, when I feel this way, I behave this way. So when I'm overwhelmed, I eat. When I'm sad, I eat. When I'm overbooked, I eat, whatever it is. And so you literally wire this pathway in your brain that says, when I feel this, I eat this. When I'm in this environment, I eat this.
Absolutely. And the scary part is, and you could apply this to alcohol, because I know I do that. I'm like, oh, I had a bad day. Give me a drink. I had a great day. Give me a drink.
Yeah.
But it works. That's the problem, is it does temporarily, right? It's temporarily, like you're stressed out or you had a bad day or you got bad news and you eat that candy bar. And for that moment, it does. You do feel this like rush of relaxation or whatever your dopamine hit, but then the negative impacts, and then that cycle starts to impact.
Yeah.
And it's the same with shopping. if with people like I had a bad, I'm going to go buy myself something.
Mhm.
And then you get excited and then the thing comes or it's anticlimactic or you get it home and then it's that
Yeah.
shame cycle that starts happening over and over.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's shopping or alcohol or like food. It's the
Right.
chasing of the reward, the anticipation of it, and then the consuming and the purchasing of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it only lasts for 3 to 5 minutes. And then we have to deal with the guilt, the shame, the bloat, the inflammation, the fear of losing control with food and weight again. I can't believe I did that again. But the reason that it seems so intense in the moment is because dopamine is so powerful. And there is a part of the brain called the hippocampus that is the pleasure center of the brain that stores all these little quick fix pleasure moments. And so the next time you have that association, that lights up and goes, oh, like, but this is how you give yourself pleasure and enjoyment and have that euphoric moment. And so knowing the brain is wired that way, it helps us better understand. No wonder it feels so easy to give in. And then you can stop being so hard on yourself going, wow, there is so much at play here that is so multi-layered that no one is ever taught unless you really start going on this journey.
So do you then help people rewire that? Because I think for a lot of people, they feel like I'm just going to stop it altogether, right? Like I'm going to stop drinking. I'm just not going to eat ice cream after dinner, or I'm not going to go shopping. I'm just not. And again, those are short-term, non-sustainable things. Like I think it's about, and I talk a lot about, well, what are you replacing that activity with? Because now you're also associating even if what you're doing is a negative thing, even if it's binge eating or whatever, it's that association of now I'm punishing myself, even if it's for the better, like you're taking something negative out. Do you then replace it with some other activity? So you're retraining your hippocampus to say, okay, when I feel this way, I do this instead of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So essentially, it's all about, there's a few layers. So it's understanding your triggers. So I teach them how to do that.
Okay.
And we want to dive deep into helping them understand, well, these are why these are triggers for you. This is how it then eventually leads you to go to food. And then it's like, okay, let's start to have you build awareness around what are the first signs you feel triggered, the thoughts, the cravings, the emotions, the environment. Because when you catch those first urges, you're catching that dopamine high in the moment. And then it's wiring a new pathway in the brain and the old one falls away. So I teach different self-care methods, practices, ways to soothe without food. There's all kinds of things depending on the triggers, the emotions, the circumstances, and what you have available to you. And so then we undo that old pathway, build a new one, and associate pleasure in new ways. Because you're right. I see so many women who'll be like, I'm just going to quit alcohol. And then they start eating, or I went through a period where I stopped eating and I was shopping at the mall every night. And I'm like, I didn't heal this. It just turned into something else.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I see that all the time with people. Yeah. Or they'll change it from one thing to another. It was like, okay, I've stopped shopping for clothes, but now I'm buying housewares or whatever it is. And so again, you're not really fixing the problem. You're moving it. Like you're picking up the box and putting it somewhere else.
And that's why it's so important for us to notice these sneaky shifts in association, or it's numbing out with TV now instead of eating, or both. So, and this is where we want to build awareness around triggers, understand triggers, why they're triggers, and give the alternatives. And then also along with that, we want to identify hormone imbalances, gut issues, blood sugar issues, because these all fuel cravings and emotional eating triggers and increased appetite levels. So we support the physical body. And then we need to work a lot on the mindset, the unworthiness, the negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs, people-pleasing perfection, and that overbooked schedule. And then the body image piece. So we're working on the body dysmorphia, the negative self-talk, the chasing the scale. Let's get curious. You're unhappy with your weight. Why? Why is your body hanging on? And why will she not let go? So I'd
like to ask her that myself.
Right. And there's many reasons.
Yeah. And I would love to, and I think it's a perfect segue, because I do want to talk about this other thing. And this is, again, coming from present company right here, is I deal with people that are in different seasons of life. And when you talk about clutter and organization, we go through different seasons where we have, things where we're, more on track, and then something goes sideways again.
Yeah.
And, I'm in this like menopausal season, and I know a lot of our listeners are either approaching it or the throes of it. And that also throws you for a loop, because I was somebody that for the better part of my life, I was pretty thin and never had to worry about what I ate. And although I had my own disordered eating, the scale of my clothes said otherwise, right? And now here I am in my early 50s, and my body is not like, I'm not comfortable in my body. And I know there are other women out there that feel that, and it impacts not just obviously your health and all that other things, but then it affects your energy level, and you start feeling bad about other things. And I see people kind of it resulting in clutter, like it's a ripple effect. So then they are holding on to clothes that they shouldn't be holding on to, or they're buying these other clothes, and then I don't feel like doing this, or I don't want to have people over, or I don't like, and it's all of this again goes back to the self-image and how they see themselves versus what social media is. Oh my God, she's 55 and look at her, and I'm 55 and look at me. But again, you're seeing a snapshot. And so even if you're not somebody that's struggling with like a full-blown eating disorder, our bodies go through these different things, and the hormone thing is a real thing. And I'm just wondering how you could kind of like talk into that as well.
100%. So one of the biggest problems is many women have had underlying hormone imbalances most of their lives, from their late teens or early 20s onward, and they're never addressed. They're never looked at. You go to your doctor and your doctor says, oh, you're too young for that. Or, oh, well, you're just in menopause. You're going to gain weight after 45, 50, 55. Like, you just have to accept it. And that's all BS. So the body just doesn't gain weight for no reason. And so the more symptoms we go through with PMS, our cycles, or into menopause, it's a sign that there's probably a pretty significant level of imbalance going on in the body. So the most common things that I see that amplify the menopause, the weight gain, the hot flashes, any of those kinds of things are going to be things like inflammation. And inflammation comes from poor gut health, or eating too much processed food, or lack of sleep and lack of prioritizing self, right? Inflammation also comes from some pretty significant hormone imbalances. So every single woman I've ever worked with, thousands of women, it has had high cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And so everything that pretty much that I've been talking about pushes our cortisol levels up. So it can actually be quite easy to get it. But because a lot of doctors don't test it or aren't advocating to dig deep, we're just told, oh, everything's fine. Or maybe you've gotten testing done, but they're saying everything is normal. So cortisol goes up, more brain fog, lower energy, afternoon energy lulls, abdominal weight gain, easier weight gain, feeling more puffy, retaining more water, salt, sugar cravings. Okay. So this amplifies the weight gain, the night sweats, the hot flashes that you go through with menopause. The other thing that I often see is that women either have too elevated of estrogen levels, so into estrogen dominance going into menopause, or not enough. And then therefore it makes the transition a lot more difficult to deal with, and it really impacts the metabolism, the weight. The other thing that I see is thyroid issues. So 95% of the women I work with have thyroid issues, and it's underactive hypothyroid, which means this thyroid is sluggish and the thyroid and metabolism are very connected. So thyroid issues ramp up with high cortisol, inflammation, it suppresses the thyroid. And the more suppressed your thyroid, the more wonky your progesterone and estrogen, the more off your cortisol, it creates this perfect storm of imbalance in the body where we don't feel like ourselves, everything feels irregular, we feel puffy, bloated, we're gaining weight, we're not happy about that. But most of us are not educated to go, okay, well, I should go and investigate through hormone imbalancing and testing and get someone to advocate who's going to hear me and listen to me and give me the answers, right? So that's what I normally see as far as why so many women going through this phase maybe put on weight or have these symptoms that are really impacting the quality of their day, because these imbalances have been ramping up slowly over years or decades.
So is there hope for people like me who are starting to see? Because I know, and I was, again, I'm not trying to make it about myself, but I am relating. I remember a few years ago when I first started noticing like the belly weight gain, and I started noticing, and I went, and my first place that I went was to my OBGYN. And I was like, I think I'm starting to go through menopause and I'm noticing. And I was shocked how she was just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of like what happens. And I was like, well, what can I do about it? And I remember she was like, well, you can exercise more or watch it. And I was like, that was so like dejecting to me, because I, was somebody that was fit and whatever. I was like, that I feel like I'm not necessarily looking for a quick pill fix, but I feel like there's got to be more to that. And, and then I had seen a functional medicine doctor, and done a bunch of testing and that did help, but I still feel like there's a piece of the puzzle missing. So where do people go? So obviously, I come to you and we do all these kinds of testing, and then it puts you on a path to being able, like, walk us through, because I think there's people that are going to be kind of leaning in at this point.
Yeah. And regardless of age, I've worked from women from 18 to 85, and regardless of the age or the life season, we have been able to regulate these things and help the body feel safe enough to release the weight. So number one, start by clearing out of your mind that your age is interfering, because it's not. It's the different imbalances going on. So yes, we do a full assessment. We look at your gut health, all your gut organs, your immunity, your inflammatories, right? Your lymphatic system, because if your lymph is stuck, you can retain 5 to 20 pounds of water in itself. Okay. And then we do thorough hormone testing. We test inflammatory markers. We look at vitamin and mineral deficiencies, right? So that's the physical picture. And then we look at how are you eating? How's your sleep, your stress levels, hydration, caffeine, things like that, because even over caffeinating and too much exercise can cause your body to hang on to weight. And then we look at the other spectrum. Okay. Body image insecurities. Okay, maybe you're not struggling with emotional eating, but maybe you are struggling with some form of emotional relationship with food. Are you overbooked? Are you people pleasing? Are you hanging on to resentment from the past and lacking forgiving others? Do you have a hurt inner child that you've never connected with? Honestly, I have some clients that we do all the other stuff, and it's when we start working on healing the wounded inner child that has been hurt and abandoned and all of these things, and that's when the weight comes off.
Wow.
So some women, it is the negative self-talk and the constant self-attack that's what helps the body release. We hang on because the body doesn't feel safe. And so it's important that we look at the layers of why she doesn't feel safe, and we course correct those and help release them. And as you do so, you don't have to over-exercise. You don't have to diet. It literally just comes off. And I'm not in menopause. I'm in my late 30s, but I gained weight like crazy after I stopped binge eating, and I was exercising and eating clean, but I gained weight because the hormone issues. I was overbooked and people pleasing still. And I had a lot of inner, healing to do with my inner child. And once I worked on those things, that 50 pounds just fell off, and I did not exercise. I did not go on a diet, and it gets to be that way. I know it's hard to believe because we're taught it has to be
just
so
like,
difficult.
sign me up. No, I'm telling everyone out there, listen, I am going to be working with Amber, because I think there's so many people, and I'm going to use myself as like case study.
Totally.
You heard it here first, folks. Because I think there's so much, and it impacts, again, how we feel about ourselves physically, emotionally, impacts all other parts of our lives. It impacts how we snap at our spouses or snap at our kids, or feel that we can, want to either take on too much to overcompensate because of something, or we hide in our house and don't want to go out because of something. So I see this inner, like this codependent relationship between our homes, our stuff, our mental and physical health. I don't know how else to say it, but that's just how I kind of feel like it is.
You're right. And I feel like, because for the most part, I mean, there's some great doctors out there, but it's like 1 in every 10. And it's really disempowering when you know there's something off or multiple things off, and you go and you share and you ask for help and you get shut down, or you get told there's not a lot we can do. It's a very disheartening. And then you think, well, I guess I kind of have to accept this and just deal with it. And it's like, no, don't ever let anyone tell you that that's it. And normalize these symptoms. They should have never been normalized. The PMS, the menopause should have never been normalized. It's a sign the body is off. Same with the weight gain. And so I think it's so important that if you're going through this, to continue to advocate for yourself and get the help that is in alignment for you, to help you get the answers and do the healing. Because you're right, it then filters out into every area of our lives. And then maybe you're a business owner and you're not showing up in your business fully because you're afraid to be seen. You have a fear of being judged, or you're exhausted and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't show up today. Or for your kids, or like you said, snapping at your spouse or your kids, like, it ripples out, and it doesn't have to continue that way. But the one thing I don't encourage people to do, don't go on Google and Google your symptoms and self-diagnose and then buy a bunch of supplements, because that could do more harm than good. And if you have, it's all good, but
no, right. Exactly. But it's so true. And I think also, and again, obviously I tie everything back to clutter and organization, because it's kind of the way my brain works. And I think back to like the the person, and I'm going to gender stereotype and say the woman, but it can be men as well, that are just at a point in their lives where there's so much going on that their house is starting to like feel like it's imploding on them. And you just are like, well, this is what it is. And again, tying it back to the food, I can relate to that, where I'm like, I'm trying to do all the right things. I'm eating well. I'm exercising. I try to get a good sleep. I know I don't drink as much water as I should, but look, I have my water bottle here. Like, I'm trying to do all things, and I still see the scale going up, and I still feel unhealthy. And I don't want to resign myself to the fact of like, well, I guess this is just the way it is. But I see women in their homes or people in their homes going, well, I guess I just have to accept the mess, or I have to accept the overscheduled. I have to accept that. And it's like you're saying, no, you don't have to accept it. There are things that you could do that are going to change. There are things, but you have to, I guess, do a little investigative digging to kind of get to where the root of that is coming from.
Yeah. And be willing and open-minded enough to take a different approach, because celebrate all the things you've tried and you've done. But the body, the house, the clutter, it's a guide, it's a teacher. It's trying to show you and shine the light on where there is a deeper level of healing, growth, optimal power for you to step into, honestly.
I love it. So on that note, tell our listeners where, if they want to work with you, because I know I'll be calling you for reals. I'm not just saying that. Where can they learn more? Where can they go to connect up with you? And of course, we'll have all of our links and show notes, but if people are listening out there and want to go and find you, tell them all the places.
And I'd love to connect and help you if I can. So so you can go to amberproof.ca. That's the website. I have a free emotional eating quiz there if you're wondering if you're struggling, so you can check that out. If you're wanting to connect and have a more in-depth and intimate conversation around you, your struggles, your weight loss blocks, your relationship with food, hormones, gut health, mindset stuff, etc., I do a 30-minute body freedom consultation. It's $50 USD. You fill out an intake form. We connect on Zoom for that 30 minutes and really dive deep into you and what's going on. And then we can talk more about the paths available to help set you up for success, answer your questions. And then, of course, we have the podcast, the No Sugarcoating Podcast, which is available on all podcast apps and the website. And I'm super excited for your episode on my show to launch. But those are the best ways. And then Instagram is just my name, Amber Romaniuk.
Yep. And again, we'll link to all the things. And $50, people, if you're out there struggling, like, come on, go do it. But I am absolutely, and we're going to document it. Like, I'm going to show you guys, and listen, fingers crossed, we'll have some success. But again, getting to the root of the problem is always what I tell people, whether it's a food struggle, whether it is a relationship struggle, whether it's with your house, whatever it is, getting to the root of the problem gives you so much clarity, because then you know what you're dealing with. And so many of us spend so much time treating symptoms as opposed to trying to figure out. And then we wind up shaming ourselves for stuff that may or may not be out of our control. So I love, love, love this conversation. We're going to take one last break before we go to our hot mess minute. Or actually, we're going to go to our hot mess minute. We're going to come back. We're going to put you in the wrap-up chair. So sit tight. All right, Amber. So excited for this. Again, I knew this was going to be a great episode. Our time together flew by. I could talk to you for hours and hours on this. But I just love to get different perspectives from different people. And one of the things that we always ask our guests is there a book or a couple of books that you've read in your life that have either been really transformative or impactful, something that you want to like share with other people that can help them just as they are navigating their own world?
Yeah, my favorite book, and it really helped me and helps clients as well, as You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay. And she really dives into the emotional connections to our physical symptoms, our blocks, and that it's not just about treating a physical symptom. It is about doing the emotional mindset work as well. It's a very powerful book.
I feel like, did she write another book? I feel
Tons
like
of books. Yeah.
I was like, I feel like I've read, I don't think I've read that book, but I like, as soon as you said her name, I was like, I feel like I've read books from her before.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she was like the front runner and all of that. She healed cancer by learning how to love herself and clear resentment out of her body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff, people. Powerful. Our bodies and our minds are powerful tools. I love it. And then our last two questions, which you can answer serious, lighthearted, however you'd like, because again, in seasons of life, we are thriving and we're struggling. So in this particular season of your life, where do you feel like you are the most organized and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
Oh, I love this question. So I'm feeling most organized in my relationship with myself and my hubby. And I feel like the hot mess that is now shifting into more of a aligned relationship has been my relationship with money. You think, money and body image are different? No, you end up having the same triggers and emotions and opinions about it. Yeah.
We do. We've done some great episodes about financial clutter and the impact of all the things. Yes, that's a whole other hot button. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's great to learn about though, because again, it's a teacher. It's all a teacher.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. I love the work that you're doing. It's been such a joy. I'm so glad we connected. I can't wait to start working with you. I'm so excited for this episode to drop. And I'm really hoping that there are people out there that are going to listen to this. It's going to really land with them, resonate, and realize that A, they're not alone, and B, that they have more control than they think they do. And I want people to reclaim that control and release it from the food because that is such a big thing. So thank you. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. Again, please click, share, follow, all the things. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We love reading them. And again, it's just social cred for other people that are looking at podcasts to say, hey, this show is worth a listen. So it really does matter, not so much to me, but for other people out there so that they know like, hey, in a sea of podcasts that this is something that I'm going to get value from. So we really, really value and appreciate that. Until next week, guys, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.